You're welcome back, ICS3C folks, for our last lesson on CSS, and an important one. I don't think it's as content filled as the last two, but very important. And um, we really get the idea of controlling and manipulating our web pages on a very precise level in this thing. We've been sort of goofing around and trying out these things like borders and padding and margins, but we really get an idea, a good understanding of how something works. This picture should be handy when you're doing your web page design now. That's a good picture, and maybe I don't know, maybe you want to print it out and have this somewhere close by, or you have this note open. Again, you should have a copy of this note in front of you, uh, perhaps, or you've saved it in your notes folder. Again, I don't need you to type anything. You can add your own comments to it if you like. That's up to you. I'm giving you this so I can go fast through it. This idea of positioning, we see the content are the HTML tags themselves. Around there is the padding. Around the padding is the border, right? That's the dashed or solid or whatever. And then after the border is the margin, and the margin, like it says, is transparent. So if you had a background color, the margin's not filled, okay? And that gives us basically space around our border before it conks into the next HTML element. And there was a bunch of ways to set these things. If we just give it one value, like we're used to in the border, all four of them are set to the same value. So all four, the top border, left border, bottom border, and right border, all have this value. Or we can specify individual separately, right? So the left margin here, this left margin would be 10 pixels, and the rest would be the default, whatever the default is. I believe the default is 0 pixels. And so that would be the default for the top margin, the right margin, and the bottom margin. We can set them one at a time. Or if we wanted them to be all different values, for instance, this one sets the padding to 4 different values in a row. And what happens is it starts on the top, then goes clockwise. So this is the top margin, then the right margin, and then the bottom, and then the left. It goes around in a circle. Okay, if you want to do all 4 of them in a row like that. Some other things, and lots of different positioning options here. Some other CSS property declarations that control the position of your HTML content we saw was display, float, clear, and position. And these things I'm going to explain in the next slide. And I think I have some code, but I can't remember. I wrote this this lesson a few days ago, and now I'm actually recording it. Display, I think, is the most obvious for us to use, even though these other ones we'll see will be useful as well. All right, next. Here, I'm going to go down one by one. So display, by the way, we would never have all 4 of these declarations in for one thing. We pick one of them, right? So display block takes up an entire horizontal row. So that means if I want something to display block, nothing will be to the left or right of it at all. This is the good one because this one ends up looking like a menu because the items end up being side by side. So one thing, then the next, like this here, these are would be called inline block. These 4 items. Display inline are on top of each other. So you'd have all the items on top of each other. Well, why the heck would you want that? Well, you might want to have layers, right? So you have some text on top of a picture, which is on top of a table or something like that. Who knows why? This puts things on top of each other. Display none would be not displayed at all. One would wonder, why would I even bother including that tag if I didn't want to display it? Well, the idea is once we get into JavaScript and more complicated web pages, is that we'll be able to change these things. We'll be able to change the values So some things will be displayed and some things will not be displayed. Float. The float, and I liked Code Academy's analogy. It's like boats on a lake. They try and keep away from each other if they can. So if you label something as left, it'll go to the left. If you label something else as left, it'll try to be left, but won't be as left as the first one. And basically HTML tries to figure out where they want you to put your elements, and this is a way to try and control that. And they just say it's like boats on a lake. You don't want to put two boats on top of each other. That doesn't make any sense. So if you generally want this item to be on the left, then you float left. Notice that clear allows us to stay clear of what's on the right or on the left or both. And stay clear, that means it'll go underneath. So for instance, and I'm just going to draw this real quick. So say an item was already placed, and then our second item was asked to stay clear. This is my web page. Let's say this is my web page here, and I placed this element. It's a table or a picture, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to place this element. In HTML, its job is to place this element, and I put clear left. That means it wants to stay clear of the stuff on the left. That means bam, it'll go right here. Okay. And part of what you're going to be asked to do in this assignment is to come up with little pictures like this in order to understand these commands and how they work and how they place elements. Okay, this is one of the things that you're going to be asked to do. And we can clear left, clear right, or clear both, which would mean if there was another one that was bigger like this on the right, like this, and then we displayed something that was clear both, it'll be on the bottom here. Okay. Position, and these are very hard to sort of understand the difference between. This will be something that we're going to investigate with our assignment. Position absolute is connected to a non-static parent. So the default position is static. This static idea is, I'm just going to leave my positioning up to HTML. They're going to put them wherever we can using all the default positioning things. Static. The position absolute is, okay, well, I don't have any other requests, but I'm going to have this relative to the parent. So if I've placed, say, a div, and this is a table inside a div, then it's going to be positioned relative to that parent. Position relative is any position is relative to where it would normally fall. It would normally fall. So this would mean, so if I put a margin of 10 pixels, a left margin of 10 pixels, say, you'd say, well, HTML is going to figure out wherever it should go, and then place it. So, for instance, let's say HTML decides it's going to go here, and then you put a margin of 10 pixels. Well, it's going to move it over 10 pixels. This would be relative to wherever it would normally go. Position fixed was a really cool one that I liked, where it stays on the same spot on your web page even with scrolling. So this idea, if I had this as fixed, this might be a menu or something like that, and then if this was my web page, and let's say it was only this much that I got to see right now, and I started scrolling down, well, a fixed thing would stay in the same spot on the page. And you've probably seen this on web pages. It feels glitchy, but it's awesome if it's, a menu or navigation bar or something that will always, you want to always show up. Of course, on kind of sketchy websites, it's often advertising that they have as these fixed things, so it's always in your way. It's always in the way of your mouse that they want you to click on some sort of advertising. And again, in our next assignment, we're going to be investigating the effects of changing these values. If you want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth about the differences between these CSS declarations. You can click on this link, and it'll take you to this site, which is essentially the people responsible for maintaining HTML and CSS, and it'll talk about that. Another cool one last cool thing, another CSS declaration for any HTML selector is this Z-Index. The Z-Index is almost like a layer, right? The default is 0, and if I were to put the Z-Index to 1, that means it would be on top, closer to the user, closer to your face, compared to other things that have a default of 0, closer to you. So for instance, let me give you an instance here. I'm going to make this. And this is of course just notebook, but I want to show you this. So I'm going to make this blue, and this one here I'm going to make yellow. And so notice that this one is on top of this one. But if I wanted this one to be on top, right now this one would have a Z index of 1, this one would be 0. But if I wanted to make this one on top, then I would just change the order, bring to front, and then it's on top. It would have, this blue one would have a Z index of 1, where all this other crud would be a Z-index of 0, and we can start layering things on our page that way. And you can see how our web pages would get a lot more complicated if we chose. All right, that's it for the last CSS lesson. And like I said, the assignment is going to be more of an investigation sort of thing, and then we're going to have a couple of projects to end our CSS stuff, and then soon we're into JavaScript, which that'll be funsies. Well, I think this stuff was funsies too. All right, that's it.